Ah, there you are. Hope the flight is going well today and the Emirates cabin crew are taking good care of you. Now, my next guest tells me he writes books for people between the ages of 6 and 106. So if you don't qualify, go off and watch a movie or go and annoy the cabin crew. He's one of the most fascinating authors I've met at any Emirates LitFest. His name is Christopher Lloyd, and stand by for a 20-minute barrage of facts and figures. Chris, thank you very much for joining us today here on Emirates World. It's a delight to see you on board this Emirates flight. You flew over on Emirates. Did they look after you?
Oh, absolutely they do. It's the best airline, I have to say. And I'm not just saying that, but I've had the great pleasure to fly all the way to New Zealand and back on Emirates. So,
did you?
Yeah, that really was a treat.
That was the right answer.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about your books. You write for well, I can say for children, but I mean I'm an adult and I enjoyed the book, so we're going to have a look at a couple of the books that you've written. This one's called Humanimals.
It's called Humanimal, that is right, yes. And
very fine it is too. And this was published, what, 2019?
Yes, it was actually just recently in autumn last year. And you're right, the books are aimed at children, but they're not just aimed at children, really. They are really for all ages. And this is quite a profound concept, I think, which is intuitive for children and less intuitive perhaps as we get older, which is the idea that, you know, we're used to dividing things up into little packets of information, whether it's syllabuses in schools or whatever else. The idea here is to connect things together. So rather than thinking of ourselves as all different species, let's have a look at all the links between the species. Let's think of the language we use and think of the common things that are similar between humans and whales and chimpanzees and even a slime mold. You know, there are so many things we have in common with other species. I thought a new word to sort of represent that connection, human and animal together, humanimal, incredible ways animals are just like us. And there's so many fantastic stories inside.
And there's nothing else of Humanimals.
Well, that's the idea. Funny enough, one of my great heroes of literature is George Orwell, and he wrote an essay, I don't know whether your viewers may know, called Politics in the English Language. And it was all about how you can change the way people think by changing the language. And of course that can be done for good effect or ill effect, but just by getting children to think about a new word, and humanimal, let's think of the things that we have in common. Let's not define everything we see by putting it in a category of its own and imagining there aren't any links at all.
Now, you set out in this book to look at the connections between us as humans and the animal kingdom.
Yes.
I'm not going to go through everything, A, because we haven't got an hour and a half,
no.
and B, because I want people to go out and buy the book.
Great.
But let's just pick a couple of things at random that perhaps we can talk about.
Of course.
Okay, I've opened it up at a page called Deception.
Well, you see, often if you ask somebody what makes us human, what makes us special, what makes us different, and I thought, well, I'll try and go through as many of those things as possible. Then I will go and see whether I can find that in the animal world. And of course people say, well, only humans can lie, we're the ones that deceive, etc. But oh no, you will find that there's plenty of deception going on in the animal world,
really?
As you can read about here with these amazing birds. And what these birds do, they're called the drongo bird, is that they deceive meerkats by pretending to have the same call as an eagle, and the eagle can be very dangerous to the meerkats. The drongo bird will pretend to be the eagle, and then the meerkats will run off as they're sort of eating their scrubs and their dinner and all the rest of it, so the drongo can come down and take their dinner. So it's a deliberate act of deception. In fact, there's deception all over nature. Butterflies, the way their wings are designed, are saying, look, I'm poisonous, don't eat me, but actually it's not poisonous at all. It's just deception, you know. So it's interesting to see how many of the things that we take for granted as being, you know, human attributes are actually, you know, been going on for millions of years in other species too.
How do you find out this information?
Well, actually, you know, this is the great thing. I don't really need to find out. I need to find out people who know. And at the back of the book is a whole list of experts. So these are scientists who've made their lives studying different types of creatures and different animals. And it's important for children to realize, I think, that there are real experts behind every page. And that many of these people hope will be role models for children in the future who want to find out about other creatures and how we can create the conditions for biodiversity to thrive in the future.
My eyes immediately fell upon Jane Goodall, because
Well, there you are.
just yesterday I
Yes.
spoke with Jane
Did
all
you?
about her
Amazing.
work with in
chimpanzees.
Gombe
Absolutely, yeah.
Park with chimpanzees. Amazing.
I know, such an inspiring lady, and I mean, she, what she really set the whole trend of just living with these animals and just watching them and almost like being one of them, and then realizing that they use tools, just like we do. They have kind of an ant soup, and they take a stick and they'll be, digging around. Again, I think she, in many ways, is a real icon for not having this prejudice that puts humans on a pedestal, which actually is the tradition of religious leaders and scientists, fun enough. They have that in common, thinking that we're special and different and distinct, but actually thinking we're very, very similar in all aspects of our behavior, whether it's our feelings, whether it's our intelligence, whether it's our communication, to so many other living things.
I've now turned the page to another interesting subject: puzzles.
Yeah, well,
tell us about solving puzzles.
Well, maybe some of your viewers, or when they go on Emirates, they like to do puzzle books and all the rest of it. Well, it's amazing, this example of puzzle solving, because it was a Japanese researcher who claimed, and rightly claimed, that he discovered the most primitive form of intelligence when he realized that a slime mold can solve a puzzle. And a slime mold is like a little amoeba, which can exist as a single-celled organism, perfectly happily eating little bacteria and things, until food is scarce. When food is scarce, it likes to link up with other amoeba so that they can then take a bit of food, pass it along the big slug, and then they all survive better if they're joined together if there's a lack of food. So what this guy did was he did a couple of things. He took a maze, he put some slime at either ends of the maze, he put some food, and he put blobs of slime inside the maze, and over about 2 hours the slime had solved the puzzle of one end to the other end of the maze by linking itself together, of course, and showing how you can get through one end of the maze to another. In another experiment here, he showed how slime mold could work out the best way of traveling around the city of Tokyo by putting food on all the subway stations, and then the slime would link together all the subway stations, and then you superimpose a map of the Tokyo subway system, and the slime has recreated it.
Extraordinary.
Isn't that amazing? It's a self-organizing system, and nature is full of them. And it is a brilliant form of intelligence without there having to be one foreman or one person or one genius. This is just nature solving problems.
When I woke up this morning, Chris, I never thought I'd be discussing slime linking Tokyo substation.
So, well, there you go. There's all about linking things together, isn't
Life
it?
is
Incredible.
fascinating.
It's connecting things together, yes.
And over here, we've got an octopus. Why have people
Well,
put an octopus
I mean,
on there?
you think Houdini is the most amazing escapologist. Well, I mean, octopuses are just brilliant at escaping from things. So if the puzzle is about how to, get out of a cage or get out of a corner, in the most sort of remarkable way, then octopus is your creature. So there's lots of amazing videos and examples of octopuses being able to escape out of impossible positions.
What started you off on this journey of exploration? What was the catalyst?
I mean, for me, the catalyst was having children. I mean, I'm very lucky. I have 2 girls. They're now 24 and 22. But when they were younger, of course, we're all born with this innate curiosity. And we forget, I think, sometimes that that curiosity can be beaten out of us if we're only told we're supposed to know this and we're being tested on something else and all the rest of it. But that natural curiosity we're born with is by far the most efficient form of learning. And it's evolved over millions and millions of years, and it's the most precious thing for a young child to have. And my older daughter got bored at school. She was constantly being tested on reading and maths, and she was quite good at those things, and the teacher was not really able to give her things that she was interested in herself. So we home educated for a little while. To start off with, it was a disaster because we rather created a school at home. But we realized after a while that when we asked her what she was interested in, then she could learn all kinds of different things using her own curiosity. And ever since watching that, really, in my own children, have I thought to myself, if we can connect knowledge together, let's create a whole history of the world from the beginning of time to the present day and see how many connections we can make and make it accessible for all ages. That would be really exciting. So that's what the other books do as well.
Brings us nicely on
Well, I
to
guess it does, yes.
absolutely everything. The history of Earth, dinosaurs, rulers, robots, and other things too numerous to mention. This is really a fantastic tome, and I've only just been able to scratch the surface. But what's the central idea behind it, Chris?
Well, again, it's this idea of there are 15 chapters. It's very accessible, lots of pictures and maps, but it's a story. And a lot of reference books are, lots of little bits of information all chopped up and all the rest of it. They don't really make sense as a narrative. But, my belief is that for many people, particularly young people, the real world is far more amazing than anything you can make up. And for anybody who thinks like that, this is the most extraordinary story you will ever read. The story of 13.8 billion years from the beginning of time to the present day. So we go through natural history, we find where the planet Earth fits in, we then see when life began on Earth, we see where our ancestors emerged in the seas and how they came out of the seas, and how the reason we have wrists, here I am waving my wrists, is because you will find in chapter 2 there a creature called Tiktaalik. And when it came out of the sea, it was like a fish. It couldn't rely on the sea to push it up like fish can, so therefore it had to be able to do its own push-up. And scientists have found in its fins the first evidence of wrist and ankle bones, so that it could push itself up to heave its body along the ground. And that's why we have wrists and ankles, because our ancestors had to be able to do push-ups when they came out of the sea 400 million years ago. So even though something may seem like it's very distant and irrelevant and 400, it's not. It's all connected together. And I think that's what this book is about. It's about a mindset. It's a mindset saying that every object, every perspective, every thought, in a way, is just the tip of a connection that you can make of narratives about the real world around us.
You obviously had a ball putting it together, writing it, researching it. What was the most interesting fact that you came across? What was the one that surprised you the most?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what it was. What is the difference between 1 million and 1 billion?
The difference between 1 million and 1 billion?
Yeah.
3 noughts?
Well, that's a very good answer, of course, yes. You could say that 1 million begins with an M and 1 billion begins with a B.
True.
That would have been, you would have been slightly higher up in my ranking of creativity if you'd said that, but that's fine. 3 noughts. But actually it's very difficult to imagine really what is the difference between 1 million and 1 billion, because brains aren't designed to be able to deal with big numbers. And when you're dealing with 13.8 billion years, you need to know the difference between 1 million and 1 billion. Here's a great way I discovered of thinking about it. If you put 1 million seconds next to each other, that is the same amount of time as 12 days. And we all know how long 12 days is. It's just, a nice little holiday in Dubai or wherever you happen to be. If you put 1 billion seconds next to each other, guess how much time passes?
3 months?
You see, that's a very reasonable answer. The actual answer is 33 years.
You are kidding.
That's the difference between 1 million and 1 billion.
12 days versus 33
years. So you meet a millionaire, you meet a billionaire. Now you know how to kowtow properly, right? Because 1 billion is 1,000 times more than 1 million. 1,000 times 12 days, do the maths. Not 3 months.
Did you go as far as a trillionaire?
You can do them up. Your viewers can work that out on their journey, in their airplane, because, it's amazing when you start converting things into a vernacular that's natural to the brain. This is why many kids and adults find numbers really kind of problematic, because for 99% of human history there weren't any numbers.
Right.
It's not the way we've evolved, but we do know about the seasons and the passage of time, and we know what a day is because the sun shines for 12 hours or wherever you happen to be, and then we get nighttime. So this is something intuitive and natural to us. And if we turn the language around us into something natural, we can understand the world so much better.
What's the latest Christopher Lloyd project?
Well, I have just written Humanimal, and the latest one I'm very excited about is that I've just partnered with Britannica. If you remember the Encyclopedia Britannica, most people will remember that from when they were young. Actually, Britannica, who are based in Chicago, printed their last encyclopedias in 2012 and then put everything online. And I started discussions with them about a year ago, and I am now editing the first new Kids Britannica encyclopedia for the last 20 years.
Ooh.
And it's going to be a whole new concept in encyclopedias. It's called the all-new Britannica Kids Encyclopedias, What We Know and What We Don't. Because in the old days, you would go to an encyclopedia to look something up and find the answer. Well, people do that on Google or whatever now, of course. But actually, every answer is the spawning of a new set of questions. And that's what answers really are, They're just waypoints on a journey of curiosity. They're not the finishing point of anything. And you find out the answer to something, suddenly your head is full of all these other questions. So the idea is that in this encyclopedia, you will find out all sorts of things we know, but you'll also find out all sorts of things we don't know. And of course that introduces you to the idea of experts behind every page, the idea if you want to find out more, there are so many things that you can get involved with to sort of improve people's understanding and appreciation of the world around us. And I think that's what an encyclopedia can be in the future. And so that comes out in September, and I'm really excited to be able to show you that when I have it in my hands.
That's September 2020.
That's right, yes.
Now, is that available in book form or is it online?
It is available in book form, absolutely, yes.
Really?
Yeah, it's a nice big encyclopedia. It'll be a really big gift book, but something that children will get lost in. And then my dream is that they will find out things and they will tell the adults around them who hadn't got a clue, and everybody's learning from everybody else. And it's just an exploration and a journey into non-fiction world, which, as I say, is more amazing than anything you can make up.
Published just in time for Christmas.
Just in time for Christmas. You've got it, yes.
Right. What have we got down here? I'm intrigued by this.
This is something I really enjoyed doing with my great friend Andy Forshaw, who's an illustrator, and he and I teamed up about 10 years ago. And I wanted to take the whole, some people aren't going to read a giant history of the world. In fact, I wrote a book before this called What on Earth Happened, which is for adults. And that's 180,000 words. And I kept on being asked to go to schools to give lectures, but kids aren't going to read giant books, 180,000 words. So I thought, is there a way of turning the history of the world into something that anybody can understand? And that took me down the path of timelines. And this is a book which you can read like a normal book, because you can turn the pages. But actually, what's wonderful is that you can unfold it. And we start at the beginning of time here. And I don't know whether you can take this end, and I don't know how this is going to work on the screen, but we keep going and we keep going, and you go all the way from the Big Bang here, 13 billion years ago, to, I don't know if you can see a grumpy looking David Cameron there, to Brexit. But it's from Big Bang to Brexit through 1,000 moments, really, 1,000 pictures and captions. And I've discovered that doing a timeline, you really can connect things, because you can see all the chapters at once. There are 12 here. Space, Earth, Sea, Sky, Land, Stone Ages, then the Far East, the Middle East, Europe, America, Africa, Australia. And if you take something that everybody knows about, well, certainly in my country here, Henry VIII in 1520, the timeline's at the bottom. But you can see they're building the Great Wall of China, the Ming Dynasty here, and Columbus has just discovered the Americas, and Luther's protesting here by hammering his protest to the doors of Wittenberg Cathedral in 1517. And guess what? The Incas are still living in Machu Picchu. So it's a really interesting way of connecting things visually that you can't do in a traditional way in a book. So this is an infographical way of presenting, a connected environment for curiosity to flow.
What a marvellous idea.
Yeah, well, it's fun. So I've done a number of these wall books, they're called. One with the Natural History Museum on nature, one with the Science Museum on inventions. And I think almost my favourite is with the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust on all the plays of Shakespeare. So when you're introducing children to Shakespeare, rather than saying we're going to do Romeo and Juliet or A Midsummer Night's Dream, I think the best way is to show them all the plays at once, not one or two. And you unfold them and you have 38 plays. And you say to the children, now spot the ghosts. And do you know how many plays of Shakespeare have got ghosts in?
No idea.
Well, there are 6 plays with ghosts. And if you ask a child to spot the ghost, they're suddenly engaged. And they'll take you on a journey from Hamlet to Julius Caesar, which is all about jealousy, by the way. Hamlet is all about doubt. To be or not to be. Is he going to take revenge for his father's death, etc., or not? Or is the ghost just telling lies? Is it to be or not to be? Or Richard III, who was such a nasty, evil man, he murdered his way to the throne, right? So he wanted to live forever, but eventually, of course, gets his comeuppance at the Battle of Bosworth Field. Or so just through ghosts, you're touching on themes like jealousy and doubt and power and all these things that children can understand through the plays of Shakespeare, but without having been told that today we're doing Act 1, Scene 2, Romeo and Juliet, because they're in charge. They can spot the ghosts, or the poison, or the flowers, or the sword fights, or the shipwrecks, because these are the themes that connect things together.
Now, I happen to know that yesterday, Chris, you were standing up in one of the lecture theatres here in front of 450, no less, children from Dubai.
Yes, they were indeed. They were terrific.
Were they well behaved?
They were wonderful. And when you say well behaved, I'm not interested in 450 children who aren't going to say anything or sitting on their hands. I want 450 children who are engaging with the narrative and the story, and they did that beautifully, and it was wonderful. What I use is I didn't bring it with me today, but I have a storytelling coat. In fact, for each of my books, I have a different coat. And it has lots of different pockets, different objects that represent different moments along the journey through the history of the world. And I invite the children to come and pick the pockets and see what's inside. And then I explain to them what is the link between that object and an amazing moment in the book. And together then we can tell the story. And it's a little bit different every time because you're obviously choosing different children to come and engage, and they're obviously react in different ways. So it's a combination of storytelling that's dramatic as well as literary, I suppose. But they were just a delight, I have to say. They were really engaged and really engaging to be with.
Are you a frustrated teacher by any chance?
No, I'm quite liberated because I'm not in the classroom every day, not in the same classroom. No. I mean, I visit lots of schools, and I think that's where I'm very fortunate in a way, is that I can take my own methodology and my own philosophy and my own connections without being trapped by any institution. And that's why I've never wanted to belong to any one institution, because I think the creativity and the perspective I can offer works best when it's more free-spirited.
Well, Chris, I have to say that when I do my research and read the books, they're kind enough to lend me the books, but after the interview I have to give them back. I think I might just actually invest in one of them, because I started reading it and I can't put it down. It really is
great.
Good. So thank you very much.
It's designed for anyone aged 6 to 106, so you're definitely in the bracket.
Chris, it's been great talking to you.
You
Thank
too.
you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, me too. Thank you very much.